Hey there, hope you're doing really well. And welcome to Ask Diane number 58, in which we'll answer a bunch of questions that are coming with it by email and one that came in via Instagram. So before we get started, as always, nothing else medical advice, just my thoughts and insights that I hope will help anyone that is tuning in here. So with that said, I have the pleasure to actually start with a couple of really encouraging, I think one is actually both are comments, really encouraging comments that I want to really thank you for sharing about was that Karan and Pilar. So we're going to start with that. And I've gotten like a few questions, which I quite often get. I've got a few questions if I do like one-on-one coaching. Somebody asks, can I Venmo you? Can we Skype? Can we Zoom, etc.? And I'm always happy to do these podcast episodes. There was a reason when I asked down number 20, talking insomnia number 23, when Tash came aboard. A lot of people, I think, found a lot of value in that one, and hope you did as well, Tash. So I'm always really happy to have somebody come on as a podcast guest. But I want to say this, that I think a lot of people have, understandably, a lot of anxiety around insomnia. There's a lot of hyperarousal, worrying, etc. And you often get, I have sensed that a lot of people get this feeling that if I could only talk to someone, like really, connect with someone emotionally, talk for a little bit, I would feel so much better, get kind of reassurance. And I think that is true. It is true that if you talk to someone that is an expert on insomnia, like myself, for a little bit, and you feel like, okay, there's nothing wrong, there's nothing going on with me, you feel better. There's nothing wrong with that. But, to get that long term, to sleep well for the rest of your life, it is, really important to completely understand what's going on, understand why you have trouble sleeping, understand insomnia, understand, why you're doing better. Because if you just feel kind of that relief and you start sleeping better, that may not last that long, but if you have the understanding, if you completely understand what's going on, that's when you really sleep well. So that's why I have this channel here. That's why there's so much dedication here, because I want everyone to fully understand what's going on. That said, if you want a more curated path, when everything's kind of laid out straight for you, and you want to have unlimited access to myself via text, you can text me as much as you want at any time, then please check out BedTyme, the sleep coaching app on Android and iOS. And by the way, first week is for free, and we can do a lot of work in 1 week. And then if you feel like that's all you need, then you can rate the app. Somebody just did. I just had a client who just stayed on for the first free week. We did a lot of great work, and I got a nice review, and I think the client was happy too. So please consider that. All right, with that said, let's jump in here and start with this really nice comment from Karan. And this came in a few days ago, and it's a comment on Ask Diane number 56. So let's read it together. Karan says, hello there, Daniel. This is Karan from the email regarding paradoxical insomnia. I wanted to first thank you for a quick and efficient response. And quickly here, for anyone that's new to the channel, paradoxical insomnia is when you sleep much more than you perceive sleeping. Typically, somebody says, I don't sleep at all, or I just sleep like 1 hour, and then you actually objectively measure you sleep like 4 or 5 hours, something like that. There's quite a big difference. But there's nothing principally different with paradoxical insomnia from what I say insomnia or psychophysiological insomnia, whatever you want to call it. It's really this. It's just one way of experiencing the same insomnia that really everyone has. So that was a little bit of that. Okay, now secondly, I wanted to go into detail about my progress. In regards to my thoughts regarding the nature of my insomnia, I found that a variety of the content present on your channel that I watched in the preceding days following our initial correspondence, as well as the video too from Martin Reed, helped to greatly change my perspective regarding my problem. And I want to share how this in turn led to relief from my turmoil and insights, if you would. One of the most important factors to overcoming this incident has been acceptance. For me personally, by accepting the nature of my problem as an issue of perception, I was able to slowly coax my mind into a more positive mindset by steadily focusing on dismantling the frigid sleep schedule I had adopted in order to protect sleep and returning back to the normal activities I would do during the nighttime. I was able to clear my head regarding perceptions and thoughts that my biological sleep system was broken in some way. which was a thought I had contended with a lot in the beginning. I wanted to come onto your channel to say that since our initial correspondence, I have been able to settle in more comfortable circumstances. As of now, I'm sleeping consistent 5-6 hours a night, which I find is my optimal amount to allow for functionality during the day. I'm sleeping a lot more comfortably and feeling as if I'm sleeping well. I think one of the most important content I consumed in my search for support was an Ask Daniel episode in which you and Coach Michael described that the best measure for successful sleep is how one feels during the day. This alone allowed me to be able to push myself into further confidence by using how I felt during the day to springboard myself into trusting in my ability to sleep naturally. I'm currently working on adopting a consistent routine of sleeping from 12 to 7 for the simple reason of efficiency due to commitments I'll have later on in the year. And I'd like to say that a few days on, it's working rather well. I owe you my deepest gratitude. Without your incredibly perceptive resources, I fear I wouldn't have had the strength to release myself from these chains. I still have the occasional rough night, but I'm working on ascending further from it. I want to thank you so much, Karan, for doing the work and putting in some thought work and getting better. That's amazing, but also for sharing it. And I think some key insights here is what we read earlier on is like these chains. Like I think Karan had developed like a very rigid schedule and kind of maybe some rituals and things like that. Abandoning that has really helped. And then also, this is so important, judging how well you sleep by how you feel during the day. If you're feeling pretty good, then that means you're getting a sufficient amount of sleep, and also taking the focus away from measuring it is a great step. I know, Karan, you're still saying I'm sleeping consistent 5 or 6 hours a night, which is great. But I think even the next step often is like not even checking. That's when you stop checking. That's when you really have gotten to a place where you're doing well. So, Karan, I want to thank you so much for sharing this, and then I want to jump onto this one. I think Pilar came like the wind this weekend and submitted I don't know how many super insightful comments. So anyone out there, look for comments from Pilar Boot. I don't think I'm saying that right, the last name, but look for comments from Pilar. They are super insightful, just pure gold in the comment section right there. And this is the one that really struck me. This is a comment from Ask Dan number 23. And for many reasons, but one is that I recently made this video talking about like the magical moments. Like one is when you have this insight, this realization, this understanding that really changes how you think about sleep. And the other one is like an experience. I think this is maybe one of the former, like these magical moments that just changes everything. So let's read this. I've been watching for a month, and it's just now clicking for me that although I thought I was calm and ready to sleep, I was always, in actuality, in a state still of hyperarousal. I would have a low-level anxiety about the oncoming night, and granted I was broken with fatigue and thinking I was prepared for slumber, I was still trying to sleep. One cannot try. It's an action of the autonomic nervous system, so it must happen on its own, sleep that is, which is a quandary because we have these big problem-solving brains that try to figure out how to make something work, happen, get fixed, etc. When sleep is something that comes around of its own accord, and when we have our mind off problem-solving mode. My wish and hopes to all understanding of the way back to rest, health, and sleep, bidding you peace, Pilar. I think for many reasons, this is an amazing comment. The big one, I think, is this one that I was still in a state of hyperarousal. I've heard this many times that somebody's just like confused, like, I don't understand what's happening. Why am I still not sleeping well? What's going on? In reality, it is that kind of like what was going on with Tash, I believe, and so many other people I've interacted with, that low-level hyperarousal, that's got like the subtle anxiety, that is producing insomnia. And when you realize that in itself is like, okay, it is hyperarousal. There is nothing strange. That leads to kind of like you stop searching for the thing that's causing it, and you feel like, okay, my insomnia is just like everybody else's. I can try this, and understanding itself leads you to not have that desire to try as much. So I think that was super helpful, Pilar. I want to thank you. I wish I could read every single comment from Pilar today. There's so many good ones. So yeah, thank you so much, Pilar. And okay, now let's move over to more of the questions for today. And this one is from Audrey, came in 5 days ago. And I kind of answered this one in a comment section. So I think I won't spend too long on this, but a few important points I want to make, and this is about OCD, which I'm actually surprised I haven't really gotten much questions about this in the past. So Audrey says this: I know you do your videos on Thursdays, but I feel like the peace of mind from you would be so helpful right now, kind of in a rough place in my journey, and would love to know that you have seen people with OCD recover from chronic insomnia. And there was a little bit more, but that was kind of the gist of it. So I want to say this, that, you know, I said to Audrey that I in the comment, I believe that I can't say that I've come up, you know, immediately thought of, okay, yeah, this person had both OCD and a lot of insomnia, but there's so much overlap between OCD and anxiety, of course, and insomnia, and you know, obsessive compulsive. What is the one? Like, you know, having that kind of perfectionist tendencies. That I would be super surprised if there wasn't somebody that had both, that had done better from their insomnia and their OCD as well. And now I think the reason I want to talk about this was that so many of these things come from the same place. Yeah, I believe, like, definitely anxiety, insomnia, OCD, they all come with panic attacks too. They all come from the same place. They all come from a desire to control something that is uncontrollable, or another way to put it is like not being willing to experience something, you know, or another way to put it also, like, is trying to escape from a perceived threat, not a physical threat. And they're all, in my opinion, really variations of the same thing. They all come from the same place. And I really encourage everyone to check out Insomnia Insight number 302, where I talk about this, like the universal problem, the universal solution. And I think that is super important. It's, by the way, if you check out the playlist, the self-coaching model is the first video of that model. And basically, you know, how I think about all this is that having that feeling, the emotion of anxiety, for example, is completely normal. It's just one out of many, many emotions. But the problem becomes when we identify that very emotion as a threat, as a problem, as something we don't want to have. And then we do things to resist it, do things to have less anxiety, kind of protect ourselves from anxiety. And that just brings more attention to the fact that we have it. And it teaches your brain that it's not good to have this. You got to try to escape. You got to try to get away from it. And then it becomes completely unacceptable for the brain to have anxiety, which makes you, you know, when you have it, you react more strongly to it. So you end up having more of it. Same thing with insomnia. I believe it's the same thing. Even though I never really read up on OCD, I think it's the same thing there. You want to try to control things because you're afraid of some outcome. And then, so again, I think they're all coming from the same place. So I thought that was just a point I want to make. I hope that makes sense to you, Audrey. And please let me know if there's any follow-up questions on that one. So I think that, you know, if somebody out there has, like, you know what, I have both these OCD tendencies and I have insomnia, I truly believe that if you educate yourself on this channel, for example, and you know, start learning and making progress, you'll see that the same principles that I use here to help people get better from insomnia applies to anxiety, applies to OCD, it applies to panic attacks. It's really all from that same place. So yeah, Audrey, hope that was helpful. And let's move on here. This is a comment from 3 days ago from Matt. And Matt says the following: Hi, my name is Matt, and I caught your YouTube video about Hypnic jerks. I've been experiencing these for about 8 months now. I came off a radical diet change and quit a bad drinking habit about the time all these weird symptoms hit me. Basically, you could call it withdrawals or detox, I guess. Lately, I've been getting worse, whereas before they would occur roughly the first part of the night, and then I could usually sleep about 2 to 3 a.m. and on. Now they're happening all night every time I try to fall asleep till the morning. The part that makes this all worse is I've been having heavy tingling in my head or brain area and down my legs, mainly the right side of my head and down the left side of my leg. They seem to be associated somehow with these jerkings, and it's pretty scary. Not sure which is worse, the tingling or the jerks. LOL. Both of these are accompanied by what seems like an adrenaline rush or something. Recently, I've been having the brain tingling all throughout the day, and sometimes I get head rushes, lightheaded, dizzy. Basically, all this is really interfering with me working, and I'm not sure what to do. I don't really want to take any meds or anything like that, so I guess I'm writing you to see what you think about this. During this detox, I've had many other symptoms, but these are the main ones persisting, and nothing I do seems to get rid of them. And actually, they've been getting worse. Some of the things I've read associated with this are kind of serious, so I'm reaching out to you just so maybe if you have any insights, because any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. All right. So I want to say thanks, Matt, so much for reaching out. And again, like I say to everyone here, nothing is medical advice. Like anyone who's concerned about your health, talk to your doctor. But I want to share something with you that I've taken note of lately, which is the following: that you know, when you're like me, you talk to people that have trouble sleeping all the time. You start noticing patterns, and this is a pattern that I've only recently really started paying attention to, which is that so many people come to BedTyme as a client there, or write an email or comment here when they have stopped taking a medication or stopped taking maybe a recreational drug, or stopped the diet, or made some kind of change like that. And the way I think of it is this: that sure, there are many chemicals out there that can have, let's call it, a sedating effect, you know. But once you remove that sedating effect, let's say, you know, your brain has been used to some kind of chemical that has been sedating, let's say, then for how long are you going to have like a rebound hyper arousal response because that sedating effect is gone? I think if you ask like a pharmacologist or a physiologist or something, I think that would not last more than maybe 2-3 days or something like that. So once those chemicals or the kind of like rebound excitement that has resulted from you stopping taking something is gone, I believe that that's just a matter of like days. Then whatever happens after that, in my opinion, in my mind, in my thinking, is all related to thoughts. It's all a thought-driven process. And a classic example is somebody that's stopped taking like an anti-anxiety medication. And that, of course, is very anxiety provoking because maybe you've taken this medication for long because it's been prescribed for anxiety, but you have come off it for some reason. And now you think, oh my gosh, my anxiety is going to come back full force. There's no question about it. This is going to happen. You stop taking it and you go, am I going against this? How am I feeling? Do I have the tingling? Do I have this? Do I have that? And like, sure enough, oh yeah, there it is. Oh my gosh, I'm not taking the medication. This is going to be terrible. I can't go back in it. I don't want to go back in it. And sometimes you go into this ambivalent state where like, I don't want to have it, but I don't want to have anxiety. That what should I do? I don't really know what to do with that. Ambivalence is always, it is self-anxiety provoking. And then you start noticing these things like a tingling, and then you're like, oh my gosh, this is bad, like something is wrong, and then that makes you more anxious, et cetera, et cetera. So where I'm going with this is to say that, big picture here, when people come off something and then start having all these symptoms, in my thinking, definitely the most common reason is that you start having hyperarousal because you're worry that you'll have anxiety. You're having anxiety because you're coming off something that you thought was helping, or something to that effect. Or it could be something random that you came off something, or you have like a detox that did cause like a physiological reaction in your body, and you're starting to pay attention to that. And now that is feeding your hyperarousal thinking that's something wrong with you. So, first thing I want to say was that. And I want to say that, whenever somebody on this channel describes what they call bizarre things, things like jerks, twitches, like tinnitus type things, you hear things, visual changes, dizziness, depersonalization, weird energy, rushes, not sleeping at all, vivid dreams, like being in a constant state of not knowing if you're awake or you're asleep. The culprit is always hyperarousal. And I recently made a video on that, like 5 bizarre things that you don't know why it is, or that's call it something like that. Hyperarousal is the culprit, for many reasons. One is that when you're in the state of like hyperarousal, like this kind of mostly it's a type of anxiety that has this anticipatory quality to it. You're hyperaroused, you're expecting something to come at you. It's like this, like if you go like into the evolutionary thinking, it's when you knew something was out there to get you. There was some kind of tiger or snake lurking, and you had to be, on alert, looking out for it. But when it happens in this context of insomnia, it's like the threat is kind of the unknown. It's like you don't know what's coming out. In reality, you know, the threat is maybe sleeplessness, or the threat may be anxiety itself, which is like creates this very confusing situation where you're scared of being scared, or you're worried about the worry, etc. So anyway, you can't escape that tiger or that snake or whatever it was when there was a physical threat. So now when you try to escape it, when you try to escape a perceived threat, the whole thing just gets really, really out of control. So one thing is that the anxiety itself can produce things like palpitations, sweating or breathing fast. That's a normal reaction when we're anxious. And then like the hyperarousal also leads you to like being hyper aware of things that are normal. Like we all have these tinglings and twitches and things that we don't pay any attention to. But when we're hyper aroused, we notice every little single thing. And then it's like, oh, there's a twitch there. I have never had that before. What's wrong with me? What's wrong? Oh, and then you pay more attention to there, and there it goes again. And then because of the hyperarousal, you have more of it, et cetera, et cetera. So I think I hope that helped kind of like a big picture explaining why you often have this like bizarre things happening, this hyperarousal anxiety happening when you stopped taking something. And now specifically to the hypnic jerks, very, very common. And there's a playlist that's going to be in the description here about those hypnic jerks. And, briefly there was another great comment today from, I can't say that, cried up with the box. I can't say it, but it was a great comment from someone who said that they no longer notice any of these hypnic jerks and they're sleeping well, but their bed partner says you still have them, which is exactly what it's like. Like my wife, my bed partner, she has hypnic jerks all the time, every night. But she doesn't know about it. She doesn't pay any attention to it. I think it's so important to know that hypnic jerks are completely normal. But when you start noticing them and you wonder why you have them and you try to stop them, then you have more. I don't know if you have more of them actually. It may be just that you pay more attention to them. But again, when you kind of understand that, okay, this whole thing is normal and I'm going to pay less attention, I'm not going to try to figure them out, etc., then you start having less of them. So that's really the key with those hypnic jerks. So I'll say thanks so much for submitting this question, Matt. And if you have any follow-up ones, then please let me know, and we'll answer them, of course. Now, here is another question, and this is from Shannon, and this is an email that came in a few days ago, and it was titled, "Having trouble sleeping since June 17th." And it goes like this. "Hi, Daniel. I'm Shannon, and I'm 24. All my life, I have been a troubled sleeper, and I used to pull all-nighters when I was a young teen. All the women on my mother's side of the family have struggled with sleeping their whole lives too. It just runs in the family. I know I'm probably not sleeping well due to stress, but one night I made the mistake of Googling, 'Can you die from sleep?' Uh-oh. Please just tell me I don't have sporadic fatal insomnia. I know it's beyond rare, but I took half of a 25 milligram doxylamine 6-8 holistic sleeping pills and one 1,500 milligram CBD gummy, and I can't sleep. I'm more scared than anything because I know that some people will if I can't sleep even when taking meds. I've been feeling very fatigued during the day since about Wednesday. Thank you, Daniel." Well, I want to say this first. As always, nothing is medical advice. Everybody concerned about your health, talk to your doctor. That said, I think the most important thing when it comes to sporadic fatal insomnia, fatal familial insomnia, is that they're not insomnias at all. They are not insomnias. When you read like case reports, and I want to thank Leah, aka Vegan ASMR, for sharing all her research, so much of her research at least, with me, and really, really confirming what I always believed, how I always interpreted all the studies, etc. on this, which is that the person who suffers from one of these rare prion diseases, similar to Creutzfeldt-Jacobs or neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's disease, they are not bothered by the little sleep they have. So that's one thing I want to say. When somebody says, "I'm really worried about my sleep," that in itself is reassuring, because that's not part of SFI. In fact, the person having this rare condition is actually not sleeping, is not having insomnia. They're not struggling with sleep, wondering why they can't sleep, etc. They're simply having a brain that's not able to produce a clear a clear boundary, if you will, between wakefulness and sleep. So from somebody from an outside perspective who's observing these patients, it's not clear. Is this person awake or is there sleep? I want to say it's very similar to a 2-month-old baby, or let's just say a 2-week-old baby. They're kind of moving, but then they're not, and then they're breathing, and they're breathing a little different. And it's like, are they awake or are they asleep? Hard to tell. Even when you do an EEG, it's like hard to tell. The little baby there isn't suffering at all, but it's still like very hard to tell if they're asleep or awake. So I think that is how what SFI is like. The person who has it is just unaware of what's going on, really. But for an outlooker, they see that. So it is if somebody has the capacity to worry, if somebody has the capacity to, talk and formulate a sentence and stuff like that, I think that's very, very reassuring. And by the way, like a lot of people describe how like I took 40 milligrams of Ambien and 100 milligrams of trazodone and I couldn't sleep at all. Well, if you're very, very hyper aroused, nothing is going to put you to sleep. And that just proves, by the way, that medications cannot make you sleep. All they can do is sedate you and maybe bring down hyperarousal that way, and allow your body to sleep. But if you're really, really hyperaroused, then nothing can make you sleep. And then, so I also want to comment, Shannon, on this one. Like, everyone in my family has struggled with sleep, and a lot of people share that with me, that they feel like it's kind of hopeless because everybody in my family can't sleep. So of course I'm not going to sleep at all. But I think it's very, very important to consider that maybe it is because, there are certain traits like having a tendency to worry, being an overthinker, being health conscious, those type of things that predispose us all. Anyone who has those is like a little bit more likely to have insomnia. And as you know, there's very little information out there about like what's best, like what should you do when you have trouble sleeping. So I think it is very important to think in the terms of like, maybe it is that I have the same traits that other people in my family, and they started having trouble sleeping because they were predisposed to that. Maybe they had tendency to worry or something like that. And then they didn't get good advice, and then they started doing things that you shouldn't do, and then they started having like this ongoing insomnia. And then maybe they talked to their other family members and they started having it too, and now maybe you feel like almost like it's inevitable that you're having insomnia, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning I know of no like genetic reason that somebody needs to have insomnia. So just putting it out there, for you, Shannon, and anybody else that is from a family where a lot of people have trouble sleeping. So Shannon, I want to say thank you for submitting this question. Any other ones come up, please stay in touch. And I felt there was, was that the last one here? Guess so. Okay, let's go back here and see here. All right, so with that said, then let us move on to this question that came in from someone via Instagram, and this came in on Thursday, and it reads like this: Hi Daniel, how are you? I saw all the videos of FFI SFI. I would like to see an analysis on the case of Ricard Siagian. He passed away a couple of years ago from fatal insomnia. In that case, he was able to walk and talk, and he was conscious about the disease he was dealing with. Please check his YouTube channel. I'd like to see more info from your perspective. I did. I've seen several videos from Ricardo Siagian, and I know that he talked about how I don't know if he said it, but the videos I heard, he kind of indicated that he had fatal familial insomnia or sparing fatal insomnia. But again, like, his videos, in fact, spanned over years. And when you read about these conditions, FFI, they're rapidly progressing. So I think that was one thing that made me think, I don't know if that's what he has. Also, he was very coherent, which is also not something you read about. So I would just want to say, I don't know at all. I'm not sure at all that's what he had. And I'll just leave it there. I'm not sure, convinced at all that's what he had. And then I just want to share that Fernando then actually the following day said, I want to thank you. The past 3 days I've been sleeping at least 5 hours with meds, but it's better than zero sleep I was experiencing the past 5 months. I have a lot of hope that soon I'll get my normal life back. What I've been doing is just ignoring all the symptoms. I was so happy. Fernando, that's really, really great to hear. And I want to say, I feel like I'm missing out on, let me just quickly check my email here because I feel like I'm missing something. There was somebody, oh, there it is. Oh, good. Here it is. I'm just going to read it from my phone here. This came in recently. It's from John. Let's see here. This came in Friday, actually. Okay, let me read it. Hi, Daniel. My name is John. I have overcome COVID-19 back in April, May. I have some lingering symptoms such as breathing and now most recently autonomic dysfunction, or what appears to be fluctuating heart rate, blood pressure, inability to make a bowel movement, muscle tightness, temperature regulation issues. I've had episodes of crazy night sweats, also occasional blurred vision. About a month ago, I had difficulty falling asleep. I thought it was initially because of my breathing, but as that got better, I still noticed my sleep was interrupted. Eventually, about 2.5 weeks ago, I had a gradual progression of insomnia. From 3 hours a night, then I had 1 hour a night, then 3 days straight of no sleep at all. Then 1 hour, 2 hours, then a good night where I had 6 hours of meds. I've tried some sleeping aids during the days where I got no sleep, and none of them worked. In fact, I had plenty of energy the next day and days following with my limited sleep. Wondering if this is SFI. I know it's extremely rare, but I started to think COVID could have triggered it. Let me know what you think. So we've already covered we talked a lot of SFI already in this episode. And again, pointing out that it is not an insomnia. The way I think of it is not an insomnia at all. Insomnia, again, is when you struggle with sleep, you wonder what's going on, you try to figure it out, like you have this subjective struggle with sleep, which is not part of SFI, not part of neurodegenerative disorders. So that's very reassuring. And then, you sleep 6 hours with meds. You always read about how SFI doesn't respond to that, which there's no surprise there actually at all. It's the first time I'm thinking this, but if you think about it, if you gave like a 6-month-old baby, or like let's say a 6-week-old baby some sleeping medications, it wouldn't produce sleep because we know that medications actually cannot produce sleep. It is only when either you believe that the medications will help and that belief kind of makes you calm down, or the sedating effect of medications makes you kind of like unable to form coherent thoughts. And we can't form coherent thoughts, you can't really produce anxiety because, again, thoughts are what produce emotions, right? So I just thought about that's where if you have like a neurodegenerative condition, then that's not thought driven, that's not like insomnia. So that's probably why medications aren't helpful when you have that type of disorder. So I think again, a lot of like anybody concerned about your health, you got to talk to your doctor. But a lot of things that we read in here are again things that are very common when you have hyperarousal, like sweating. We know that there's white coat hypertension, your blood pressure can increase, your palpitations, all these things come from hyperarousal. And of course, insomnia and these patterns that you often notice is like, I sleep 1 hour, then nothing at all, then 2 hours, then 6 hours, and 4 hours. They often seem like a clue, like, okay, I have this pattern, and if I can figure out why I have this pattern, it might help me sleep better, or like this pattern signals something important about my sleep that I can use to sleep better. In reality, these patterns, all they really tell is that you either had less hyperarousal, you somehow less worried one night, or more sleepy one night, and that's why you slept more that night. Another night you were less sleepy and more hyperaroused, and that's why you slept less than that night. There's really just two things that determine how well we sleep, and one is how sleepy we are, our sleep drive, and the other one is hyperarousal. So when you have this pattern, it means that there's like fluctuations in this hyperarousal and sleep drive. So nothing strange with those. So I want to say if you have any like follow-up questions, let me know. And I think just browse on this channel and try and listen to other stories and try to find that, you know, my story is very similar to others, and learning from others, and the channel I think will help you a lot. All right, so very, very cool. I hope this brought a lot of value. I have this kind of sense that I sometimes have that I missed one comment or one email. I know, Dawn, there was a particular comment that I wanted to spend more time on that was yours, and I hope I'll get to that sometime. But other than that, if I missed your comment or your question, please let me know. And I look forward to having you back here real soon. I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, take it easy.